The following stories come from the people who stayed on Forbidden Island, he who's experienced things they can't explain. These terrifying events still haunt them, and some say it's best not to know the truth. Names and places have been changed, but the fear they felt is real. And trust us, you might wish you'd never heard it. If you dare to keep watching, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more chilling tales. You won't want to miss what comes next.
Let me be brutally honest. The story you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a confession. It's about an island, a place so steeped in malevolence, it feels like it was spat out of hell itself. Forbidden Island, a name I spat back at it, and its venomous history. That's the core of this nightmare. This isn't some campfire tale. It's pieced together from hushed, terrified warnings, from bitter local whispers, and yes, from the damn fragments of my own sanity after being utterly alone out there. What I endured felt so hideously real, it burns me to this day. But I need you to understand, this is my personal horror. Don't look for it on a map. Don't expect a neat little bow. The real horror? It's the sickening realization of what we can be forced to believe, what can be clawed into our minds when darkness takes hold and you're the only one screaming. It's here. Damn it, it's not stopping. The sound, it's clawing its way closer. I shouldn't have looked. Why did I look? I won't let it.
The allure of the accursed. You know, some places just radiate wrongness. They fester on the very edge of our perceived reality, whispered about in hushed, angry tones. You won't find their cursed names on any map, and their histories are a poisonous tangle of rumor and pure, unadulterated fear. Forbidden Island is one of those festering sores, or at least it damn well became one for me. For years I chased the forgotten, the abandoned, the eerie. A sick thrill, I suppose, but Forbidden Island, that was a different kind of poison. Not just abandoned. They said it was cursed, that it actively despised trespassers, fought them with a fury I now understand. The stories, oh, they were a chaotic torrent, never quite aligning, spewed across shadowy internet forums, or spat out in mainland towns miles from its tainted shores. Tales of souls vanishing without a whisper, unnerving lights that mocked from across the water, and a suffocating dread that clung to the place like a shroud. Some claimed ancient tribes had branded it taboo, a bleeding wound between our world and some godforsaken next. Others muttered about a lost military unit, swallowed whole overnight, leaving only their cold steel in a silence that screamed. And then the darker whispers of something ancient, something vile, festering in its black-hearted forests. That siren song of the damned, it was like a festering splinter in my mind. The more I heard, the more I felt this perverse, infuriating pull to unearth its rotten truth, or maybe just to spit in the face of its terrifying legend. The sensible part of me, the one clinging to logic and science, wanted to laugh it off. Curses, apparitions, pathetic nonsense surely. But another, more reckless part, the part that still felt the icy grip of childhood ghost stories, was already ensnared. And damn that part of me. Deciding to camp there wasn't a casual choice. It was a challenge, a furious dare hurled at my own encroaching fear. Could I survive a night alone on Forbidden Island and emerge with my skepticism intact? Or would the island break me, infect me as it clearly wanted to? Getting there was an exercise in calculated, infuriating isolation, a grueling drive to a desolate stretch of coast, then bartering with a fisherman whose face was a mask of grim disapproval. He didn't ask why, not when I shoved far too much cash into his hand to ferry me towards a place he clearly abhorred. He wouldn't even touch the island itself, spat that the waters were a treacherous, jagged maw of hidden reefs and currents that would drag you down to hell. He dumped me, my kayak, and my gear on a miserable rocky outcrop a quarter-mile from the island's oppressive shadow. The sky was a slab of bruised gray, pressing down with a physical, malevolent weight. "You sure about this?" he'd growled, his voice like gravel, refusing to meet my gaze. "Some places, they hate visitors." His unspoken anger, his fear, it was a warning I was too arrogant to heed. As his boat shrank, a mocking speck against the churning water, a profound, hateful silence descended. Only the desolate cry of a distant gull and the angry slap of waves against the rocks broke it. The island loomed, a monstrous mass of dark green and black, its shoreline a jagged snarl. It felt less like land and more like some ancient predatory beast daring me to approach. The mind games had begun, a cold fury rising in me. Was it the island itself, or just the damn power of suggestion? I clung to suggestion. I had to. Paddling my kayak across that furious channel was a battle. The currents felt alive, malicious, trying to hurl me away from its shores, or worse, drag me into the jagged rocks that lined its edges like broken teeth. It felt like the island itself was trying to repel me, one final contemptuous warning. But I was committed, my stubborn anger overriding the cold dread coiling in my gut. Finally, arms screaming in protest, heart hammering a furious rhythm against my ribs, the kayak scraped onto a small, putrid beach. It was nestled in a cove that seemed fractionally less hostile than the rest of the godforsaken shoreline. I'd made it. I was on Forbidden Island. The air was a suffocating blanket, heavy, damp, and seething with an unnatural stillness. The trees, a dense alien tangle, crowded the shore, their branches writhing like tortured limbs in the dim, hateful light. And the smell, a vile cocktail of rot, salt, and something else. Something faintly metallic and utterly, sickeningly wrong. This was it. My world, my sanity, was miles away, on the other side of that churning gray fury. I'd crossed a line, and there was a cold, hard knot of rage in my stomach that this place had already started to win. Now I just had to survive its tests, its damnations, and the night it had waiting for me. The island awakens. First camp. A pathetic illusion of safety. I chose a small clearing, a few yards from the beach, but partially shielded by an overhang of dark, weeping rocks. Defensible, I thought, though against what I couldn't yet articulate. The sun, already a weak, watery accusation, began its descent, painting the sky in bruised, angry purples and oranges. Each passing minute amplified the island's oppressive, malevolent aura. As I worked, forcing out the tent, laying out my sleeping bag, checking my gear with a growing sense of fury at my own predicament, I couldn't shake the distinct, unwelcome, and infuriating sensation of being watched. A common enough paranoia in a new wild place, I tried to tell myself. Just animals, hidden, curious. But this felt different, calculated, intelligent. I'd snap my head up, scanning the tree line, the black voids between gnarled trunks, expecting to see something, anything. But there was only the dense, unmoving foliage, mocking my unease. The silence, too, became a weapon. Not peaceful, but a predatory, listening silence. The usual chorus of insects, disturbingly, chillingly absent. Even the birds seemed to have fled as dusk deepened its hold. The only persistent sound was the wind sighing through the highest branches, a mournful, almost articulate sound, carrying whispers I couldn't, or perhaps wouldn't, decipher. It was infuriating. I built a small fire, more for a defiant gesture against the encroaching darkness than for warmth. The flickering light pushed back the shadows, creating a tiny, fragile bubble of supposed safety. Beyond its reach, the darkness was absolute, a solid wall that made my courage feel like a flimsy, pathetic joke. The first truly inexplicable event was subtle, a deliberate taunt. I'd placed my multi-tool on a flat rock beside the fire. I turned away for no more than a minute to retrieve something from my pack. When I turned back, the multi-tool was gone, vanished. My heart began to hammer with a mixture of fear and anger. It wasn't a large area. It couldn't have just disappeared. I swept my hands over the rock, patted down the surrounding grass and dirt. Nothing. Had an animal taken it? A raccoon? A bird? The tool was heavy, metallic. It felt like a deliberate act of malice. I tried to rationalize it, fighting the rising tide of anger and unease. Maybe I'd pocketed it without thinking. I checked. Number. Maybe it had fallen and rolled into some unseen crevice. I decided with a frustration that gnawed at me that I'd search for it in the morning, trying to ignore the cold, tight knot of fury in my stomach. This place was playing games. As the last vestiges of twilight bled from the sky, the island seemed to awaken, to unleash its true nature. The temperature plummeted, and the wind, no longer sighing, began to moan, to howl through the trees like a tortured soul. And then I heard it, a sound that shot a spike of pure, undiluted adrenaline, mixed with a fresh surge of rage down my spine. Distant at first, a high-pitched, mournful cry echoed from the island's dark heart. It wasn't any animal I recognized. It was too sorrowful, too suffused with a chilling, ancient despair. My mind, already poisoned by the island's legends, instantly seized on the most terrifying, the Wendigo cries. Logically, I knew Wendigos belonged to different lore, different geographies. But legends mutate, they travel, they find new fertile ground in places reeking of such dread. And the sound I was hearing, it fit those blood-curdling descriptions perfectly. How dare this place manifest such specific horrors? I told myself it was the wind, a trick of acoustics. But the cry came again, closer, clearer, its rhythm too deliberate for mere weather. My attempts at logic were failing, shredded by a growing anger at my own vulnerability. The psychological warfare of isolation was in full effect, amplified by these inexplicable, malicious occurrences. I scrambled into my tent, zipping it shut with a defiant rip, a flimsy nylon shield against the island's palpable hatred. The fire outside was dying, and I refused to give it the satisfaction of seeing me cower outside to tend it. My small lantern cast dancing, distorted shadows, twisting familiar shapes into monstrous threats. Every rustle, every snap of a twig was magnified, sending jolts of furious adrenaline through me. Then came the tapping. It began on the side of the tent farthest from the dying fire. A light, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails dragged across fabric. Tap, 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 pause, tap, malicious, deliberate. My breath hitched. I froze, listening, every nerve screaming in outrage. That couldn't be an animal. The sound was too calculated, too inquisitive. I strained, trying to pinpoint it, trying to will it to be a branch. Rain. But the air was still. The sky, through the tent's small vent, was clear. Tap, tap, tap. Closer now, moving along the side of the tent. Testing me. I fumbled for my heavy-duty flashlight, my hands slick with sweat, trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. My voice, when I finally forced it out, was a choked, angry whisper. "Who's there? What do you want?" Silence. The tapping stopped. For one fleeting, deceptive moment, I hoped it was gone, that I'd scared it off or imagined it. Then a low growl, guttural and deep, rumbled from just outside the tent, right where the tapping had been. A sound that vibrated through the ground, through the very air, a primal menace that bypassed all reason and clawed directly at the oldest, most terrified part of my brain. It was a declaration. Cold, absolute fear, mixed with a burning rage, washed over me. This wasn't just the island playing tricks. This wasn't isolation. Something was outside my tent. Something real. And it knew I was in here. It was daring me. The ordeal in the dark. The chanting, damn its insidious rhythm, was the final straw. It shattered my paralysis, not with courage, but with a desperate, furious, animalistic need to see, to confront whatever monstrous entity was out there, Or at least not to die cowering like a rat in a nylon trap. The thought of remaining a passive victim, waiting for the inevitable, suddenly became more terrifying, more infuriating than facing the unknown. With a surge of adrenaline that burned like acid in my veins, I clawed at the tent zipper. It snagged, a petty, everyday frustration that in my hyper-stressed, enraged state felt like a deliberate, malicious act of sabotage. My breath was ragged, a harsh roar in the suffocating stillness. Finally, the zipper tore free. I thrust the flap aside, my flashlight beam slashing a defiant path through the inky, suffocating blackness. The campfire had dwindled to a few pathetic, glowing embers, casting just enough feeble light to make the shadows writhe with menacing life. The air was thick, heavy, each breath a conscious, labored act of defiance. The chanting had ceased, or perhaps I just couldn't hear it over the furious thunder of my own heart. I scanned the tree line, the flashlight beam jerking with the violent tremor in my hand. Nothing. Just that impenetrable wall of trees, their branches like skeletal fingers, clawing at a starless, hateful sky. The metallic scent was stronger here, a sickeningly sweet and nauseating wave of pure wrongness. And then I saw it. It wasn't a sudden appearance. It was as if a piece of the deepest, angriest darkness simply detached itself, coalescing, taking form. At first, a fleeting hope, a trick of the light, a figment of my tortured imagination. But it solidified, gained substance, a silhouette against the slightly less black void of the forest, a silhouette of pure, unadulterated malice. It was tall, unnaturally so, and slender, yet it radiated an aura of immense, crushing power. It didn't move like any creature I knew. It glided, flowed almost, between the trees at the clearing's edge, silent as oblivion. I couldn't discern features. No eyes, no face, just a shifting, vaguely humanoid monolith of pure blackness, darker than the night itself. It was an affront. My mind reeled, a scream of denial trapped in my throat. This was no bear, no deer, no mere product of fear. This was something else, something that had no right to exist. It stopped, poised at the very edge of the dying firelight's reach, a looming embodiment of terror that radiated an almost physical cold. I felt the temperature plummet, the last embers dimming as if a great, suffocating shadow had fallen over them. I was frozen, not by indecision, but by a terror so profound, so absolute, it felt like it had turned my blood to ice. My flashlight beam, a pathetic, defiant flicker, remained fixed on it. It made no sound, no aggressive gesture. It just watched. And in that watching, I felt an ancient, alien intelligence, a deep, chilling understanding. It knew I was terrified. It was feeding on it, reveling in it, and I hated it with every fiber of my being. The psychological horror was a crushing avalanche. My meticulously constructed reality was shattering into a million pieces. The legends, the curses, the whispers, they weren't just stories. They were echoes of this thing, this undeniable, hateful reality that squatted here on this forsaken piece of land. I recalled the tales of possession, of campers exhibiting violent, unnatural strength. I didn't feel possessed, but I felt a terrifying erosion of self, my will being ground down by its sheer presence, by the suffocating dread it exuded. My sanity felt like it was fraying, the line blurring into a terrifying, maddening haze. Then it raised an arm, long, impossibly thin, like a branch stripped bare, ending in something that glinted faintly. Claws, or perhaps just the way the minimal light caught its sharpened tip. It pointed not at me, but towards the dark, tangled path leading deeper into the island's rotten heart. A silent command, an invitation to damnation, or a threat of unimaginable horrors to come? I couldn't breathe. My lungs burned. The world narrowed to that pointing arm, that abyss of forest, and the crushing weight of its silent, malevolent stare. Fight or flight. The primal scream was deafening inside me. But how do you fight a shadow? How do you flee something that seems woven from the very fabric of the goddamn night? And then, the sounds began again. Not the Wendigo cries, not the chanting. Something infinitely worse. Whispers. Dozens, scores of them, seeming to emanate from all around. From the trees, from the ground, from the very air itself. Hissing, insidious, just beyond comprehension. Not in any language I knew, yet their meaning was an unmistakable torrent of despair, malice, and a gnawing, insatiable hunger. They were trying to break me, to unhinge me completely. The figure remained still, arm outstretched, a dark, silent conductor of this orchestra of madness. The whispers intensified, weaving a cocoon of terror and rage around me. Pressure built in my skull, a dizzying disorientation. My vision tunneled. The ground seemed to tilt. I thought of those soldiers, their raw terror. What unspeakable damnation had they witnessed? What horrors had hunted them? Had they faced this abomination, this guardian of the cursed? And a surge of anger, of solidarity with their unknown suffering, coursed through me. Suddenly, a new sound tore through the cacophony, a sharp, piercing shriek from the direction the figure indicated. A sound of pure, unadulterated agony, inhuman yet chillingly familiar. And with it, a wave of putrescence washed over me. The metallic scent now choked with the unmistakable stench of decay. So potent it made me gag, bile rising in my throat. That shriek, that stench, it snapped the spell. The pointing arm, the silent, hateful command. It was leading towards that, towards the source of that unimaginable, hellish suffering. Numbered not a chance in hell. Whatever that was, I wasn't going near it. I would not be led. With a guttural cry ripped from my own throat, a sound of pure, furious defiance, I broke. I didn't run toward the forest. I scrambled backwards, crab walking, kicking myself away from the figure, away from its damning gesture, towards the dying fire, towards the flimsy, desperate hope of my tent. The figure didn't move. It didn't pursue. It simply watched, a silent, towering judgment, as I scrabbled in the dirt like a terrified, enraged animal. The whispers swelled, swirling, mocking my retreat. I reached my tent, tore open the flap, and hurled myself inside, yanking the zipper shut with fumbling, useless fingers. I lay there gasping, hyperventilating, every muscle locked in a spasm of terror and residual fury. The flashlight was gone, dropped outside. Total darkness. The ordeal wasn't over. The sounds outside persisted. The whispers, the distant, agonizing shrieks that echoed on and on, punctuated by periods of heavy, listening silence that were, if possible, even more tormenting. I curled into a fetal position, hands clamped over my ears, a futile attempt to block the sounds, to erase the image of that silent black sentinel and its hateful pointing arm. Sleep was an impossibility. Every shadow, every rustle, every creak was the creature, returned to claim me. I was trapped in a crucible of fear and impotent rage, my mind replaying the encounter, the pointing arm, the overwhelming sense of ancient, malevolent intelligence. The psychological toll was immense, a furious battle for sanity. Was I losing my mind? Had isolation and the island's cursed reputation finally driven me over the precipice? Or was this truly a supernatural assault, a glimpse into a reality humanity was never meant to witness? The line between the two became an indistinguishable, maddening blur. The horror was absolute. The night stretched into an eternity of terror and simmering rage. All I could do was wait for dawn, praying it would come, praying that whatever haunted Forbidden Island would retreat with the darkness, praying that I would survive to spit on its cursed soil one last time. The gray dawn of deliverance. The first hint of dawn wasn't some glorious, redeeming sunrise, but a grudging, subtle dilution of the oppressive blackness. The night's ink slowly watered down to a bruised, exhausted gray. It seeped into the tent, revealing the cramped, damp prison where I'd spent hours teetering on the edge of catatonia, consumed by terror and a burning, helpless fury. The horrifying sounds from the island's malignant heart, the shrieks, the whispers, had gradually, resentfully faded with the deepest dark, replaced by an almost unnatural stillness, as if the island itself was holding its breath, daring me to move. I lay there rigid for what felt like another hour, too damn scared, too angry to check if the night's abominations had truly retreated. My body ached from the prolonged, violent tension. My throat was raw from unscreamed curses, and a profound, soul-deep exhaustion, laced with simmering resentment, had settled over me. The night's events replayed in a horrifying, infuriating loop. The tapping, the growl, the silent black figure, its damning arm, the whispers, the screams. Had it been real? The sheer, visceral terror, the unnatural cold, the rotten stench, those felt undeniably, infuriatingly real, seared into my memory like a brand. Cautiously, achingly, I unzipped the tent flap and peered out, a fresh wave of anger rising at the desolation. The world was gray, as if all color, all life, had been leached from it by the island's malice. The air was cold and damp, carrying the cloying smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. The metallic tang, thankfully, was weaker, though its memory still made my stomach churn. The clearing was empty. My flashlight lay on the ground, its lens cracked, a small physical testament to the night's violence. The embers of the fire were long dead, a pile of gray ash, a mocking epitaph. There was no sign of the figure, no footprints where it had stood. The ground there, covered in a light layer of dewy leaves, was undisturbed. This lack of evidence was, in its own insidious way, as chilling, as infuriating, as its presence had been. It fed the gnawing doubt, the suspicion that my mind, pushed past its limits by isolation and primed by fear, had conjured the entire damn thing. But the terror, the rage, felt too real, too primal, to be dismissed as mere hallucination. It was a violation. The lingering shadow. Days bled into weeks, the sharp, screaming terror slowly dulling into a persistent, gnawing dread, a furious shadow that squats in the back of my mind, a constant, unwelcome reminder. I was back in my ordinary world, surrounded by the mundane, yet nothing felt quite the same. The experience on Forbidden Island, that one night of hell, had permanently, irrevocably altered my perception of reality. That carefully constructed skepticism I'd arrogantly carried to its shores, it lay in ruins, shattered by the island's calculated malevolence, and I resent it every single day. I've tried, God knows I've tried, to make sense of it, to piece together the fragmented, burning memories into some kind of coherent narrative. Was it truly a supernatural haunting? Had I encountered some vile entity, a guardian of that cursed place, a manifestation of its venomous history? The legends, native warnings, military disappearances, those goddamn Wendigo cries, they swirl in my head, no longer quaint folklore, but terrifyingly plausible explanations for an experience that defies rational, calm understanding. That oppressive feeling of being watched, the shadowy abominations, the noises that clawed at my sanity, even that sensation of extreme agitation, that almost possession old tales warn of, it all points to something far beyond our comfortable, known world. Something that actively sought to harm me. Or was it, as the weaker, more desperate part of my brain still feebly suggests, a profound psychological collapse? The bitter fruit of intense isolation, the insidious power of suggestion fueled by the island's ominous, suffocating reputation, and a mind pushed to its absolute screaming limit. The human psyche is a fragile, infuriatingly delicate thing. It can conjure its own demons when faced with overwhelming fear and the unknown. Perhaps Forbidden Island was merely a mirror, reflecting my own deepest anxieties in monstrous, terrifying form. But that feels too easy, too dismissive of the sheer, focused malice I felt. The truth, I suspect, festers in that terrifying, maddening overlap between the two. The island itself, with its tangible atmosphere of dread, its unsettling, possibly fabricated history, acted as a catalyst, a malevolent stage. It created the perfect, hellish storm for the supernatural and the psychological to merge, to become indistinguishable. The folklore, the ghost stories, they aren't just entertainment, they're warnings, damn it. They prime our minds for fear, especially in places that already feel intrinsically, absolutely wrong. I never found any official records of Forbidden Island as I endured it. No maps pinpointed its specific layout. No historical documents validated the precise legends that had lured me in and then tried to destroy me. It remains a phantom, a place that perhaps only truly exists for those foolish enough to seek it, or for those damned enough to stumble into its cursed, hateful reality. Its undocumented nature only amplifies its mystery, its terror, its infuriating power. It's a stark, brutal reminder that not everything is known, not everything is charted, and some things are actively hostile. The unveiling I mentioned, it isn't some neat, tidy conclusion, no definitive proof to satisfy skeptics. Instead, it's the unveiling of a personal, burning horror, the raw, agonizing exposure of what it feels like to have your understanding of the world ripped apart, violated. It's the chilling, infuriating realization that there are corners of our world and corners of our minds, where the darkness is not just real, but actively malevolent. I haven't been camping since. I can't. The rustle of leaves, the deep shadows of a moonless night, the cry of an unfamiliar animal. They all trigger a visceral, angry memory, a faint echo of the pure terror that island inflicted on me. I sleep with a light on now, a pathetic, infuriating admission of defeat. The experience has left me with a profound, grudging respect for the unknown, and a burning, healthy fear of places that whisper of curses and ancient evils. Some doors are best left unopened. Some islands are best left forbidden, and I'm angry that I had to learn that lesson this way. What about you? Have you ever been violated by an experience like this? Something inexplicable that clawed at your sanity in some remote or supposedly haunted place? Did fear twist your mind, or do you believe, with every fiber of your being, that you encountered something truly horrifyingly unexplainable? Share your stories, your anger, your confusion in the comments below. I genuinely need to hear them. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone in facing this kind of unsettling, infuriating violation is a comfort. And if this story resonated with you, if it chilled you or angered you on my behalf, consider subscribing. Perhaps together we can try to understand, or at least stand defiant against, what lurks in the shadows, what seeks to break us. Forbidden Island. For me, it'll forever be more than just a name, more than a collection of burning, terrifying memories. It's a symbol of the profound, often terrifying, and actively hostile mystery that still festers in our world, just beyond the edges of our comprehension. It's a brutal, infuriating reminder that sometimes the scariest encounters are the ones that leave you questioning not just what you saw, but the very nature of reality itself, and fill you with a rage that has nowhere to go. I survived my night on Forbidden Island, but a part of me, a violated, angry part, never truly left its haunted, hateful shores. It's still there, a small, terrified, furious piece of my soul, forever listening to the whispers in the dark, forever bracing for the return of that silent, black figure.